I'm Tal Bowen. I live outside of Philadelphia in the Lansdale area. I first met Emet doing If Not Now together. So we were part of, I would say, like the first wave of If Not Now in Philly. And we met going through trainings together with If Not Now and then organizing community events together. Yeah, oh my gosh. I see myself next to Gavi and Don and Adam and Sarah. Oh my gosh, Abby. Yeah, this was our beginning crew. I see Josh and Milo and Pele, Sarah Barish. Yeah, I remember a lot of our stuff was in the Repair the World space, which was a nice space for everyone to be able to be in and for it to be accessible, easily accessed by transit and everything like that, and that feeling really important. If I'm remembering correctly, I feel that was our, I don't remember what the word is for it, if not now, beginning training, right? I remember going to my beginning training and then I remember doing logistics for another one a couple months later. That might have been the one that Emmett came to. And my memories of those trainings were just how nice the community was. It was a really well planned training where there was time for folks to share and process our own experiences and for folks to really connect about what we were learning about some of us growing up really involved in a Jewish community and not necessarily learning directly about Israel and Palestine. I remember talking to Emmett about that because we had both gone to some Jewish schools. I went to Perlman, and it's not open anymore, but Seligman was the middle school that Perlman Jewish Day School had for a while in the Philadelphia area.
Is Perlman pluralistic?
It was, yeah. I mean, there was some pretty conservative overtones, I would say. Many, but they welcomed anyone, and there were folks there who had bar and bat mitzvahs in various different types of communities, but I remember it being pretty religious. Right, right. I think that was the coolest thing for me. I mean, our backgrounds were a little bit different, but I also grew up in a Jewish school space and I went to Jewish summer camp and feeling there was space for all this. For me, it felt still new, interesting kinds of Judaism was really, really cool. I had never had a friend in hospice before, so to be there with people who knew the liturgy, knew what the traditional sort of by the book process was, and then having people from Reconstructing Judaism and having all of their Emmett's cohort there was really special for me. It felt just exciting. Like the Jewish aspect of it was alive, but in a way that on Emmett's terms and sort of community built, and that was awesome. And I was close with Sarah Barish and at that time, and so we it was very cool to see them doing more pastoral stuff and then also just holding some of the logistics, which that to me was another part of it that was awesome. The way that the community kind of took on the logistics of who's going to be there and who's going to walk the dog. What are all the tangible things that we need? Something about that feels really Jewish to me. So, yeah, that's another part that I remember being, wow, this is cared for and there's no one that needs to be holding all the pieces. This is the real community effort. Yeah, I think I don't remember being, no, there might have been Google Docs. I know at that point we used that for almost everything, but there was a lot of group text and then individuals texting, somebody being the point person to be, okay, I'm going to take care of food tonight and make sure that I order DoorDash, Shake Shack or whatever. And then in that sort of, you're on this topic and this other person, can you do this topic? I also remember because I lived in West Philly at the time, and I remember driving folks over the bridge over down to the hospice area several times. And I remember the carpooling or biking together was something that we did sometimes too. So even just organizing how we're all going to get there. And so that everyone kind of felt, yeah, we're doing this together. We're all in this together. And it felt really nice. I biked or drove sometimes with Maris. She lived in West Philly at that time, I think. I also remember driving with Sarah Barish. We had both been in this Muay Thai gym in Eight Limbs. And so we would sometimes go afterwards, go before we would take a class at Eight Limbs and drive together. I think Pele still lived in West Philly at that time also. As someone, for me, getting to a place feels sometimes can feel as challenging as doing the thing, the activity that you're there for. And so I remember feeling, yeah, this me driving, because I had a car, was a really helpful way to get people there and also just lower the level of challenge for the event, because West Philly, I think, can feel like its own little island sometimes. And I didn't always love that. I remember Sarah being really one of the point people, or one of the people who was doing a lot of the coordinating, and Josh Friedman also. I don't know why, if that's just because we were friends at that time, so we would just talk about it. But I I do really clearly remember Sarah, and then because I wasn't in the cohort at Reconstructing Judaism, I think there was probably a point person over on that side too, but that wasn't necessarily my group. And then I do remember, I can't remember their names at this point, but there were Emet's siblings were there, and maybe somebody from back from day school era, K to 12, who would come down and stayed a lot. And I remember them, but I do, in my mind, I think Sarah was my point person for a lot of it. Right. Right. Yeah, I think I was just sort of, I'm going to defer to somebody who feels a little bit more they know what's going on, and maybe this isn't their first time dealing with hospice, or maybe dealing with somebody in an extended stay in a medical setting, because it was sort of my first time probably visiting, not necessarily visiting somebody, but somebody in an extended stay for more than a couple of days here or there. So I wonder if that played a mix into it, if there were folks who rose to the occasion a little more because they either had this experience, or maybe they were doing pastoral care as part of Reconstructing Judaism. I don't know if they have classes, internships where you're in a hospital or something. That would be cool if they did. I do. Okay. Yeah, it was very cool. The decentralized aspect of it was pretty pretty strong in the way that we showed up for Emet. And I think something I always loved about If Not Now, logistics were held so firmly, and it did certainly feel that. And especially when we did the celebration of life, there was food, there were art aspects to it, there was liturgy and ceremony and stuff. And I think even just with the rides that we were talking about, and what time we're going to visit, and who's going to know when the visiting hours are, and I feel that the same sort of, you're on your different committees, and If Not Now, and you're working on different things, all part of the same shared goal, was what I feel like that was pretty similar, for sure. And I think also the relational aspect of it, where folks were reaching out to the people they were closest to. Sarah and I were in the same gym, so we would talk a lot. Josh and I were friends, and we would hang out outside of If Not Now spaces, outside of Emet's community, and so we would talk a lot. I think that relational aspect, I feel really strongly that that's important in community organizing, and I liked how that was part of Emet's community also. I remember this. I just remember the joy of having this Harry Potter party. You can see it in all of our faces. Look at Mickey's ears. Those are so funny. You said Harry Potter party, and I had the glimpses of memory, and then now I'm remembering just Mickey's face of feeling so proud of being a hilarious house elf. So funny. Yeah, oh my gosh. I remember the themed snacks and drinks, and like we brought the party planning into this hospice space, and oh my gosh, This is bringing back so many cute memories. It was awesome. There were themed snacks, themed drinks, a lot of talk about how we didn't like J.K. Rowling anymore, but Harry Potter was that's a pivotal memory for so many in our generation that we didn't want to let go of. I wonder what Sarah's reading. I don't remember, but oh, that's so funny. Magnets and the decorations. It's so awesome. The
Mhm.
glasses right above Emmett's bed. Remember how many people we would fit in their room, but also how it felt now having been in and out of hospitals a lot more in the last several years. What a blessing to have such a big room logistically. I love what you said. I think I had forgotten how significant the story was for Emmet. Maybe I'd come late past that part, really sharing why Harry Potter was so important. I do remember feeling really just how special it was. There was an energy and a feeling in the space. I think probably because there were so many rabbinical students so deeply knew the text and knew the the process. And I also remember feeling really amazed at how Emmett was able to describe and then bring this vision to life of what they wanted this celebration to be. It felt it had the energy of really cool ritual space. I don't know if that's not really a descriptive way of saying anything. When to me, when I'm doing some sort of Jewish ritual that someone people that I care about or respect have been changed in some modern way, in some way that meets their terms, it feels you're connected to this really ancient practice. And I remember feeling this is, wow, this space is really special. And there's just an energy of caring in the space, in the room, and how much heart people had put into this, also how much respect for Jewish practices, which is super, super powerful when you also think about people going to rabbinical school, reconstructing Judaism, or folks from If Not Now. I think many of us have had to reckon with like what Judaism had meant to us and how it can be changed and how we could make Judaism fit with our values and with our what we care about. And so that it felt super powerful to me and special. There was almost just an energetic quality of holding the importance of it, connecting to this ancient wisdom, but also the room felt really empowering to be in, to have people choosing the different prayers that we wanted to say. Emma getting ordained during the ceremony was so cool. Yeah, I mean, so my life has been lived adjacent to the Reconstruction. Like, the synagogue I was in growing up wasn't fully identifying as recon or anything, but my best friend's mom was working at RRC at the time that it was called. And yeah, I had an understanding of kind of what it meant. And I also feel there were parts of it that still felt a little mysterious to me, or, well, I'm not a rabbinical student, so I don't really know how things can be changed. But I think the, I remember there being a booklet. Folks had made their own sort of like prayer text for the ceremony and or the celebration, and I that felt pretty reconstructionist to me, that you can pick and choose the prayers that you want, right? You can write a different or an English interpretation that matches how you feel. And I think that also fits with the idea of a celebration of life, right? It's the person wanting to have their own their own ritual for their own passing. And I think those were really aligned. I also think that the way that Emmett really understood rabbinical text had been going through the schooling. I think like everything was so woven together because there was a deep understanding of what the historical text was, and then an understanding that reconstructionism means making it on your own. The tree maybe feels something that I would do.
The tree feels familiar to you.
Yes. And I remember there was something else on there. So I was working at the time. I'm a teacher, and so I was in school. I would only go at night. I was at the West Philly Co-op school. It was a cooperative preschool, and I was doing that while I was getting my teaching certification. And then midway through the winter time, I switched. I got a placement at neighborhood charter school in West Philly. It was actually somebody else from If Not Now. Milo had worked at in the past, and yeah, so I was with little kids and then with slightly older elementary kids, and that kind of took up my days. So I definitely remember I just remember feeling really impressed with folks who had daytime availability, right? Because that was not me. I did, yeah. I don't think there was a typical night. I think it depended on who needed a ride or what night. Maybe there were less people that so like Emmett would have wanted more, depending on how many people were there or how many were Emmett wanted. If they wanted just a chiller night. I remember there were definitely a couple nights where I would not go because I heard from usually Sarah that, or maybe Jordan, that Emmett needed some downtime. But I think I'd usually go during the week and then on Shabbat sometimes as well. How did you figure out for a lot of things? I would often get relayed messages from Sarah Ferris or from Jordan title because well Sarah and I were at Eight Limbs together. Have the celebration. That feels so Emmett too. I remember having us writing a sign in their room at 18th and Lombard that said "fuck the rules" or something like that.
I know precisely which picture you're talking about.
Just thinking about like a wedding without a partner, I would have been excited about bucking the rules, right? Yeah,
So you made that?
yeah. Who gives a shit? Fuck the rules.
I'm magic.
Yep. Yeah, that was me. Probably me and Mickey because that feels like something that Mickey would have also said. And it's
Who
written on
gives a
like a
shit?
paper towel. It's so funny.
Oh, it's a beautiful paper towel. Who would even know it's a paper towel? I all I see is glitter.
I know, right? Oh my gosh. I remember really just trying. I think this might have come out of rules of how many people could have been in the room or something like that. And me just being like, Emmett, who gives a shit? We could do whatever we want here. Oh, it's so funny. It's so beautiful. I love that you're learning new stories and now this is bringing back memories that I had forgotten and it's so nice. I love that. Yeah, that's such a nice idea. I love all of the duct tape, just the way that everything's hung up. Like that's so perfect though. These are such good pictures and just so colorful. Ugh, we gotta find a banner. Well, I want to know what I feel the tree is something that's a thing I would do. I think what we were touching on about the joy of accepting and welcoming the joy felt so just such an Emet thing. I remember there was one, if not now Shabbat, that we had in somebody's house in South Philly. South Philly houses are notoriously inaccessible, right? Like you got to go up a couple of steps to go up into the house and then there's usually never a bathroom on that first floor. I remember for whatever reason we had a Shabbat at somebody's house in South Philly and I remember going with Emet and Emet being comfortable with us lifting them in their chair into the house over the stoop and how special and trusting that was and how We made sure that Emma was comfortable with that and that was what they wanted and everything. But I was struck at how sometimes there's a sacrifice for the joy that's about to happen or the joy that you're going to have. There being this hurdle, physical hurdle of getting into the stoop, and how Emma being, yeah, this is okay because sitting in a house with my people is going to be worth it. And that feel like really special, and I think also pretty telling of just the symbolic of the barriers that we have and that we face, and even the barriers of trying to build a community in Philadelphia, which is sometimes not super accessible for wheelchair users, or sometimes not easy to find gathering spaces, right? Like, I think it was the summertime, so I think we wanted to be inside somewhere with air conditioning. And there was obviously probably something going on at Repair the World where we couldn't have a Shabbat there. I remember that. I mean, I loved our Shabbat services a lot. That we would have potluck dinners and just sing, and that feeling really special. That was one of my favorite memories. Yeah. I think I don't know. I'm really grateful for you for bringing this project to life because it does allow me to kind of revisit this time and just how special it was for us to be able to be there and support. And me personally, I feel a million years older than I did at that time. So much has happened since then, and wow, how incredible that many of us young folks, I was certainly young at the time, did this, navigated this, and because Emmett was such an incredible person, full of wisdom and humor and joy and a little bit of cheekiness that I really I thought was funny, that I connected to, and silliness that I also think is so important, right? I remember Emmett having awesome hair, all the fun colors of hair, and bringing, like, yeah, it's okay, just be silly, be you, and that I love that. I I think that Emmett really helps, and I think this process helped me to really learn about the mundane things feeling important, and they weren't even mundane. But I mean, we're talking about this huge process of intentionally coming to the end of your life and facing that, and then these really smaller logistical things. I don't want to say mundane, that was the wrong word, but finding a place that was okay, that would allow dogs, and that would allow visitors and have space for larger gatherings. Like, those small things feeling, and they weren't small, but when you're comparing them to, and the whole process, like your life coming to an end, I think they feel small, but those were the things that sort of made this special. In my teaching and in my care since that, I've lost a couple people that were important to me, and remembering those parts, like gathering, having humor, making sure the beings that were really important, the pets, I've really tried to bring those things to the forefront because I remember them being so important to Emet and to us going through it, to me going through it. I also, I don't know, and now I teach in a public school in the 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 suburbs of Philadelphia, and there are a small amount of trans kids. I'm lucky to work in a school where wearing shirts that say, like, protect trans kids, and having a rainbow flag on your door is okay, is allowed, because it's not okay in some districts, even marginally close to Philadelphia. I think I think a lot about trans and queer kids, especially in elementary school. And that's not necessarily disability related, but I remember Emet so much as a really strong advocate and really able to clearly talk about their trans experience. And I think about that a lot with my students, with how I help my colleagues, even just not using boys and girls to get to, as an attention getter from the books that I use, or the scenarios that I talk about in my groups and in my teaching. Having a really young, really strong advocate helps that a lot. I mean, we use rainbow duct tape. You use rainbow duct tape to hang up everything. Right. Nobody would bring regular duct tape. Emet Space it had to be rainbow. And they weren't just regular stickers, right?
No.
They were gorgeous, right? That's funny too, an ironic, kind of sarcastic way that I think Emet would have really enjoyed. Oh man, I think the community, being around people and sharing stories and celebrating times since then has been helpful. And even I think it's Rachel that has Emet's Instagram, but like when she posts on Emet's yard site, even just the stories, that helps me a lot. But something that feels really resonant. So a year and a half ago, my stepdad figure, my mom's partner of many, many, many years, passed. And he was in hospice for a little bit. And he had, I think, a similar sort of tongue in cheek kind of humor. He had a pin. He was working for a little bit and then was not able to work anymore. He had a pin that said "still alive" on his on his hat, and I feel that's something that Emet would have had totally. And so since going through that experience, because he had a much smaller circle. I mean, he did not have hordes of people from all walks of life in the space. But since then, in a similar way, my mom and my brother and my brother's fiance, and we've all been sharing stories about her partner Frank, and thinking about things that he would have found funny. And that for me feels it's just the best way for me to really mourn them and feel my grief, is to share it with other people. And so I loved the way that we as a community kind of like had these really special moments. We had a Harry Potter party. We had incredible art. We had this celebration of life. Those things that I could remember. I don't know how to get through the hard parts. I think there are parts that are just really hard and really sad that I think about, especially more recently with my mom's partner. And I don't know if there's a way necessarily to get through them other than notice them and mark them, take some breaths, feel it, and then notice the mysterious ways that the person that Emet, or that my mom's partner, shows up in a flower, or I don't know, a dog, or rainbow duct tape. I don't think I'll look at rainbow duct tape to save anymore. Yeah. Oh, it's so hard because I feel at that point in my life, so much of all of the spaces that I was in were in really queer safe spaces. And I it's not like a secret, but I think that the queers, the trans folks, are really good at holding each other. And the Jews, of course, the Jews, we were queer Jews, right? And I feel there I live in a place that is much more straight and suburban, feels a lot more Christian, and it feels lonelier. It really does. I think that the community and the care and the willingness to embrace silliness and joy that felt really present for me in this process with Emet, and I think in a, if not now also, and also in Jewish spaces when I would go to Kol Tzedek. And I think that stuff is really life affirming. And just talking with you now, I do certainly miss that space. Yeah. Oof. I know. I feel none of my grandparents were Holocaust survivors, but my mom growing up did a lot of research on, it was called the Transcending Trauma Project. And and I think just growing up as a Philadelphia area Jew, the Shoah is always there, right? And I feel, oh my gosh, I've had to explain that so often this year, especially to people who are not necessarily raised Jewish. So I think there's this, I think the resilience was something that a lot of, that felt present throughout the whole process with Emet. Even somebody writing resilient on the wall, right? I don't remember necessarily any stories of anyone talking about grandparents or lessons from grandparents, but I think this unspoken element of we have survived hard times and we survive them by being together and by learning and using and leaning on each other. That's a lesson from the Shoah that I felt growing up, and I think that was present also in the room with Emmett. Maybe you can help me remember this, but I I have a vague memory of going to the Philadelphia, like the trans conference with Emmett. Yeah, I remember being at the convention center. I remember there were friends from college that I had seen there too. I don't remember much, but I remember the conference. What a good place. Philadelphia is pretty cool. There's so many people that have moved away from Philadelphia that were part of this community since then. How cool. There's a trans conference. We have RRC. Yeah. I think, well, I think as a teacher and a parent, I'm a stepmom to two kids. And I think your first instinct is to want to fix things. You hear the child, you hear the young person say something and you want to jump in and you want to correct it. But what I think I learned there, and I think I've learned since then, is to listen, to just be present with the people who are experiencing whatever they're experiencing, and to let them speak and let them share. And if not, to hold space for them if they just need to be somewhere. I'm an emotional support teacher, so I help students who have anxiety, who have ADHD. In my school, it's also folks who have autism and also and behavior things going on, challenges going on, mental health stuff. And so I do a lot of this kind of, I've learned to do a lot of this kind of just sitting with their feelings. Even I think to take a flavor or a lesson from this process with Emmett to be really explicit and clear. So the question I ask a lot is, do you want to talk about it or do you want to just sit? Or would you like to draw with me? Or are you looking for solutions or you just want to share? But to really clearly ask the person what they need and give them what they need without judgment. I think that feels very paralleled. Right. We were young, right? We didn't necessarily know. Like we could be on our phones. We could talk about dating troubles, right? We could just be present and be who we are because the people being there and us being ourselves was what mattered. I feel you're doing an amazing job. Right. And yeah, it feels I love I love remembering this and I love having this living kind of Shiva and having it be virtually accessible, physically to be able to see it in the Jewish Museum. I'm already thinking I need to bring my mom there. Yeah, and I think it's such an important time right now to be remembering that also. We did something amazing. It was not the easiest time,
We're
but we
like,
did it together. Right. Right. But to look back on it and have so much respect for the group and love for the group feels so special. Yeah, it wasn't perfect. It was a little messy. I didn't always know how to show up, and I think other folks did too, and we also built what we wanted. That's such a good lesson for right now. I think there's so much scariness about or a fear of making a mistake, but just to start and do something and to figure it out along the way feels so important. I I felt held throughout it, and I felt comfortable doing my own process. Me as a carer and oftentimes as a fixer. How awesome was it? I didn't hold all the pieces. I didn't jump in and I need to do it. Got to take care of everybody. I just shared in the process. Somebody's going to figure it out. And we did figure it out. And the web of connections of people who knew each other from this or that or the other place, that it worked. Like that network worked. Right. It was a time when I was working on my teaching, right? It was like a big time for my future career. No, but I didn't have to. I could say no, and I could say no. I can't be there during the day, and other people could. Yeah. Emma was really good at holding people's boundaries, but I love that Emma was like, okay, yep, sure, and was able to just move past it. Like that's just not a skill that everyone or many people could do. Yeah, the compassion and the you be here, and it's okay. It's okay if you're messy, or it's okay if you can't explain exactly what you're feeling or the reason behind what you're doing. Yeah, oh, I want them to know that. I love that. I know, I wanna watch all the interviews. There's a spot for, I think the website is an awesome it's gonna get you to wanna say yes if you're a part of it. I think this was a joy to talk about. I love that. We did. We did, and I'm just so grateful that there's a place for this all of our learnings, all of Emmet's teachings to land. Thank
and
you. Thank you. And now I want to dive back into all of those pictures and see if is there anybody else I can identify that I don't know. Okay, that's my project. I like it. Oh, thank you.
Yeshua.